Picture an animal standing in an open space before three silent humans. Years earlier, one person pulled that animal from danger and helped it recover. Now the animal is completely free to approach anyone or leave them all behind. The first human is a stranger holding food. The second wears clothing similar to the rescuers. The third is the person who actually helped save its life. So who does the animal choose? Suppose it ignores the food, passes the decoy, and walks directly toward the rescuer. That feels like a complete answer. Scientifically, it is only the beginning of the question. The animal might recognize a voice, a scent, a face, or a familiar way of moving. It might remember months of feeding, handling, protection, or calm contact. It might simply have learned that this particular person predicts safety, or it might understand something far more complicated. Perhaps it remembers that this individual intentionally removed danger and provided help. Those explanations may produce the same visible approach, but they do not mean the same thing. Only the last one turns the reunion into a human-style moral story, and that is also the explanation most difficult to prove. This video will separate 4 possible levels behind the same emotional behavior. It will show what a reunion can support, what it cannot prove, and why distance does not always mean forgetting. It will also explain why approaching a rescuer is not automatically the same as feeling gratitude. Nobody can hand an animal a questionnaire asking who saved it and why that mattered. So before asking whether animals forget their rescuers, we need to define what remembering could actually mean. Most people begin with one simple assumption. Recognizing someone means remembering being saved. That assumption breaks apart once memory is examined at different levels. The first level is familiarity. A scent, voice, shape, movement, place, or routine simply feels known. The second level is individual recognition. The animal distinguishes one particular human from other humans nearby. The third level is relationship memory. The animal retains a social history built through repeated interactions with that individual. The fourth level is rescue understanding. The animal remembers that this person intentionally removed danger or provided help. These are not 4 separate memory systems competing inside the brain. They are 4 levels of explanation that scientists might consider when interpreting the same behavior. The first 3 can be supported through observation with different degrees of confidence. The fourth is much harder because it requires the helper, the danger, the helpful action, and perhaps the helper's intention to remain connected. A dramatic reunion can therefore prove less than an emotional viewer assumes, but more than a dismissive skeptic may allow. It may not show an animal consciously thinking, "Thank you for saving me." It may still show that one specific human remains socially different from everyone else. That difference matters because memory does not have to survive as a complete internal movie. An animal may retain scent, sound, posture, touch, or an expectation of safety. It may lose the exact sequence, timing, location, and surrounding details. So, the useful question is not merely, does this animal know this person? The better question is, which level of memory does this behavior actually support? To answer that, we must shift from levels of interpretation to the memory processes researchers can observe. Researchers cannot ask an animal what it remembers, so they infer memory from behavior. They test whether an animal returns to a place that once produced a reward. They test whether it avoids a person previously associated with danger or pain. They test whether it chooses a familiar social partner over a stranger after a long separation. The simplest process is associative memory. One signal becomes linked with an outcome. A particular sound may predict food. A particular uniform may predict handling or examination. A particular location may predict danger. It is tempting to dismiss this as just conditioning, but conditioning is a genuine form of memory. Those learned associations can sometimes remain remarkably durable. Social animals often need something more specific than a general association. They benefit from individual recognition, the ability to distinguish one animal or human from another. A social creature may need to remember allies, rivals, relatives, caretakers, and threats. Then there is a more debated category researchers cautiously call episodic-like memory. Some experiments examine whether an animal remembers a structured combination of what happened, where it happened, and roughly when. Certain birds, for example, appear able to remember what kind of food they stored and where they placed it. Their later choices can also reflect how much time has passed. Such results suggest structured memory, but they do not prove that animals consciously replay the past as humans sometimes do. The behavior can still reveal combinations of identity, place, outcome, and timing. That matters because remembering a person may depend on several linked cues rather than one isolated signal. One principle connects all these processes. Memory is selective rather than complete. An animal may preserve the central meaning of an experience while losing much of the surrounding detail. The identity of a safe individual may remain. The exact sequence of the rescue may disappear. A voice may still predict calm contact even when the original danger is no longer represented clearly. Long-term recognition is therefore plausible without requiring a perfect memory of the entire event. Forgetting every individual after a short separation would be costly for a social animal. A creature living among other minds benefits from remembering who shared food and who attacked. It benefits from remembering who protected its young, created danger, or could be approached safely. Different species solve this problem through different sensory channels. Some rely on faces or body shapes. Others depend more on scent, voice, movement, or touch. Across primates, elephants, cetaceans, birds, and other mammals, past interactions can shape later social choices in different ways. Different species store identity differently, but many already track socially important individuals. A human caretaker can become part of that social map when interactions are repeated or meaningful enough. The stronger and more consistent the history, the more opportunities the animal has to encode that person separately. The animal does not need to mistake a person for a member of its own species. It only needs to retain something simpler. This particular individual has a specific history with me. That history may include food, calm handling, reduced pain, protection, or reliable space. Repeated outcomes can make one person a distinct social signal, influencing distance, attention, posture, or proximity. Such changes may be subtle, but they become informative when they appear selectively and repeatedly around the same individual. But recognition is never automatic, and it is not identical across cases. It depends on the species and on the senses that species relies upon. It depends on age, health, stress, previous experience, and the length and frequency of the relationship. It also depends on whether the reunion provides enough of the old cues for the memory to become accessible. A familiar voice may succeed when a changed face does not, and an old enclosure may help when a new place does not. So some animals may retain a specific human for years. Others may fail to recognize that person after a much shorter separation. There is no universal rule that animals never forget. That brings us back to the neglected half of the title. Why can a memory that once mattered become difficult to retrieve, altered, or lost? Start with the most ordinary possibility, memory decay. Information that is rarely used can become harder to access over time. The memory may become weaker, less detailed, or more dependent on the right cue. Aging can add another barrier. Older animals may experience cognitive decline, sensory loss, or slower recognition. Illness, injury, chronic pain, and severe stress can also reshape behavior. Memory may also remain without being expressed as viewers expect. Changed sensory cues create another problem. A personne sans change, their voice changes. Hair, clothing, body shape, posture, and walking pattern may all change as well. An animal may hesitate when the old combination of cues no longer matches. Context can be just as important as identity. Recognition may be easier in a familiar enclosure, habitat, or daily routine. In a strange location with unfamiliar smells and sounds, the same person may be harder to identify. Later experiences can also interfere with earlier ones. New caretakers, new dangers, new routines, or repeated stress may compete with the older association. The original relationship may also have been too brief. A single rescue can be intense for a human observer and still fail to create lasting individual recognition. The animal may remember pain, danger, handling, or relief without encoding the rescuer as a distinct social identity. And even when recognition survives, it may not produce a dramatic reunion. An animal can know someone and still remain cautious. It can recognize a voice and still avoid physical contact. It can prioritize escape, food, offspring, territory, or immediate safety. Its response may be a small change in posture, attention, distance, or vocalization. That reaction may be meaningful without looking affectionate on camera. No visible reunion does not automatically mean no memory. A dramatic approach is only one possible expression of recognition. A lack of approach is not proof that the memory has disappeared. Memory and visible performance are not the same thing. So when a reunion does happen, the scientific question is not whether the moment feels moving. The question is, what evidence inside that moment actually supports the interpretation? Think of a reunion clip not as a conclusion, but as a test with missing controls. Imagine an animal approaching a former caretaker after a long separation. The movement looks deliberate, but what can it tell us? The first question is the time test. How long were the animal and the person actually separated? Several years support durable memory more strongly than several weeks, but time alone does not reveal what survived. The animal may remember the person, the routine, the voice, or a learned expectation of safety. The second question is the specificity test. Does the animal respond differently to this person than to everyone else? An approach, vocal response, or sustained proximity becomes more informative when it is directed selectively toward one person. The third question is the comparison test. How does the animal respond to a stranger holding food? What happens with another familiar caretaker? Does the voice alone produce a response when the person is hidden? Does similar clothing matter without the familiar scent or movement? Viral clips rarely include these slower, less emotional comparisons. Without it, even a beautiful response remains open to several explanations. The fourth question is the freedom test. Can the animal genuinely leave? Voluntary proximity tells us more than contact during feeding, training, restraint, or a confined encounter. But freedom to leave still does not prove gratitude. It may approach from curiosity, familiarity, social interest, or reduced fear. Now combine the four tests. A long separation supports durable memory. Selective behavior supports individual recognition. Repeated calm contact can support relationship memory or learned trust. Comparison challenges simpler explanations, while freedom makes the choice more informative. Together, these signs may create strong evidence that one person remains socially distinct. They still cannot directly reveal a complete memory of the rescue itself. They cannot show whether the animal understands that the person intended to save it, and they cannot establish human-style gratitude from behavior alone. That caution makes the conclusion more precise, not meaningless. Suppose the animal hears a familiar voice and stops retreating. Suppose it moves closer only after the person repeats a familiar gesture. Suppose it remains calm beside that individual while avoiding others. Those small, selective changes may be less dramatic than an embrace. They can also be more informative. The real scientific payoff is not proving a sentimental story. It is showing that one particular human still changes what the animal expects will happen next. This is where conditioning, trust, relationship memory, and gratitude are often confused. They are not memory systems, but interpretations of why remembered experience changes behavior. Conditioning is the simplest explanation. The animal learns that a particular signal predicts an outcome. That outcome might be food, calm handling, social contact, freedom, or lower threat. The absence of food weakens the simplest feeding explanation. Repeated calm contact may still make the person's presence predictive even when no reward is visible. It does not erase every learned association attached to the person. Trust can be described behaviorally as a reduced expectation of harm around one individual. An animal may approach because previous experience has repeatedly predicted safety. Relationship memory describes something slightly broader. The animal retains a distinct social history with one particular individual. That history can include conditioning and trust at the same time. Then comes gratitude, the word doing most of the emotional work in reunion videos. Human gratitude usually includes recognizing that help occurred. It also includes identifying who caused the benefit and valuing that person because of the helpful act. Observed animal behavior can support positive association, recognition, attachment, selective trust, or relationship memory. It cannot easily reveal whether the animal represents intentional rescue in the same moral form a human does. That is a limit of what an outside observer can infer. So, avoid one extreme. We should not claim that an animal feels gratitude exactly as a human does, but calling the behavior only conditioning does not make the relationship meaningless. Conditioning creates real expectations, trust can be learned, and social memory can remain influential. A relationship does not stop mattering simply because science uses careful words. In fact, the careful explanation may be more interesting than the sentimental one. One individual has become a lasting predictor of safety inside another species' world. The question is why humans feel such a powerful need to call that prediction "thank you." People want to believe that kindness leaves a permanent trace somewhere in the world. A rescue story offers an almost perfect moral shape. There is suffering, intervention, survival, reunion, and remembered goodness. That completeness helps explain why such clips spread so quickly online. Humans naturally interpret unfamiliar minds through emotions we already understand. That habit is called anthropomorphism. It can make us assign motives the evidence does not support. A lowered head becomes gratitude. A loud call becomes a declaration of love. A return to a familiar place becomes proof of a detailed autobiographical memory. Yet anthropomorphism can begin empathy if it remains open to correction. The danger is treating the first emotional interpretation as the final answer. A short clip can hide food cues, training, familiar routines, repeated failed attempts, or selective editing. It may show one dramatic approach while hiding neutral encounters or signs of stress. But there is an opposite danger. Dismissing every behavior as mere instinct can ignore individual recognition, social learning, emotional memory, and selective trust. A healthier question avoids both mistakes. Do not ask whether the animal loves, remembers, or thanks exactly as a human would. Ask what the evidence permits us to say about that animal's own form of social memory. And keep one practical warning in view. Recognition does not make a wild animal safe to approach. A remembered relationship does not erase territorial behavior, protective instincts, stress, physical strength, or unpredictability. A reunion clip is not permission for a stranger to imitate the caretaker. The larger meaning is quieter than the viral version. Humans and animals may not carry the same story about their shared past. They may preserve different details and assign different meaning. But two different nervous systems can still build a history around one particular individual. That history can change attention, distance, expectation, and safety. Now we can return to the title without sentimentality and without cynicism. So, do animals ever forget the humans who saved them? Yes. Some animals can forget. A memory may weaken through time, aging, illness, changed cues, new context, or interference from later experiences. Sometimes the contact was too brief for the rescuer to become a lasting identity. Some animals may remember the person without remembering the rescue as a distinct event. Some may retain the relationship without understanding the intentional act of help behind it. Some may preserve a learned expectation of safety without displaying dramatic affection. Others may show no obvious response even when recognition may remain. What can science say with greater confidence? Some animals can retain long-term memory of specific individuals. What can careful observation support? One particular human may have become linked with familiarity, reduced threat, care, or selective trust. What can a reunion clip not prove? It cannot show a moral memory of the rescue, establish understanding of intention, or confirm gratitude in the full human sense. At the beginning, the emotional question was whether kindness gets remembered. The answer is more subtle than yes or no. The rescue may fade as a sequence of events. The rescuer may still remain socially different from everyone else. That difference can survive in a voice, scent, posture, expectation, or small shift in distance. The remarkable part is not that another species thinks exactly as we do. It is that two species can form a shared history without sharing the same language or the same kind of memory. An animal may never carry the rescue as a story it could tell, but it may carry a quiet distinction written into behavior. One human is no longer interchangeable with the rest of the world, and sometimes that is the strongest answer the evidence can honestly give.